Sports Car Magazine recently had the opportunity to join up with the European Alvis Owners Club as they embarked upon their USA 2000 tour, also known as the Alvis American Adventure. Alvis automobiles were produced from 1920 through 1967. Tour organizer Robin Bendel gave me an expert synopsis of Alvis's esteemed history and also spoke about the Alvis American Adventure, the largest gathering of antique European cars ever to grace American roadways.
These are Alvis cars. It's a tour that has been organized now for nearly 2 years. We brought 81 Alvis cars over from Europe, most from the UK, but from Sweden and Germany and Belgium and Switzerland as well. There are 81 cars came over, and we are doing a tour starting in Baltimore, going up to Shenandoah and then Watkins Glen up to Maine and then down finally to Hershey on the way home. Well, Alvis is a strange car. As you may see from looking around, there aren't two cars the same. Alvis in the early days just built chassis and engines, and so everybody had their own bodywork put on. And so they have an individual personality. Everyone is different. It's different to drive. Mechanically it changes a little bit. So they create a personal image, and they become very much part of you. Most people who have these cars here have owned them from anything from 15 to 45 years. I've owned mine for 45 years. And so they're cars that are part of the family. Some of these cars have been owned from new by the family and handed down from father to son. So it's kind of very much a very specialist family car. And the company itself, who, although they're the biggest military vehicle manufacturers in Europe now, are still very much interested in the cars they produced, and they support us and join us in many of the things we do. And Alvis is Latin for workers in aluminum. And most of these cars have got aluminum bodies. They have, the older cars have engineeringly fantastic construction, and so they are unique. Alvis make their own engines, and they were fairly big and very robust engines. Not particularly the quietest in the world, but they go. And our 3-litre cars, which were built in the 50s and 60s, still do 100 miles an hour where they're allowed to, of course, and there are no police around. And even the pre-war cars were big winners in car races and hill climbs and rallies. This is one of the earliest Alvises. This is a 1927 1250, and these cars, there are I think about 6 or 7 on this tour, and these cars were probably the raciest things in the early 20s. They have crash gearboxes and are phenomenally fast for their age. In fact, they're still raced in the UK and will comfortably do 70-80 miles an hour. They have cable brakes and magnetos, so it's quite a skill in driving it. In the early 30s, Alvis went to the more luxurious cars which appealed to the people who had made it, and this is one of them. This is a Speed 20. These cars were built even in the early 30s to do 90 to 100 miles an hour, had very individualistic coachwork on them, and were the start of Alvis's building cars of quality, which were equivalent to a Bentley and a Lagonda and even the Rolls Royces. Then in the late 30s, Alvis really went into the big time with these 4.5-litre cars which were high speed. This is a short chassis version. In fact, this car lived in America for probably 30 years of its life before it came back to the UK to be rebuilt and used. A high-powered, high-performance car. The war kind of killed high-powered cars, and so they're quite rare. Then, of course, after the war, things were different in Europe and more economy cars were produced. And this is a typical example. This is a TA14 designed in the late 30s, but not really produced until the early 50s. And this was the ultimate in cars in the 40s and 50s. Started off as a fairly small engine, but eventually finished up as a 3-litre car. Probably there are more of this model still running than any model of Alvis. Alvis were never a big producer. and I think in their whole life probably only produced 400,000 cars. Then in the sort of late 50s, early 60s, Alvis started to go into the high style cars. They teamed up with what was British Leyland, and in fact also with Graber of Switzerland. And this is a Graber design body which they produced in quantity. There again, it's a 3-litre engine, but this still has the features that you would have in a modern car. The ultimate in Alvis cars were the bodies totally designed by Graber in Switzerland. And here you have two examples of cars which are total one-offs in that they are designs that were produced by Graber, who of course also did the Ferraris and the Aston Martins and many other cars. So the ultimate and the end of the story is another manufacturer designing bodies and producing them in Switzerland.
The Alvis American Tour was an event for the whole family to enjoy. Mary Holmes gave Sports Car Magazine the women's perspective.
You mentioned the open top.
Yes.
And I know that the English like to drive with the top down a lot, even when it's kind of cool. What do you think of that?
Yes, always. We never put the top up. Even when it's snowing, we have the top down.
Even when it's snowing?
Yes.
Does the inside get messy, or?
Sometimes a little wet, but that doesn't matter.
And you don't mind?
No, I don't mind at all. Christmas, Boxing Day, we go out for a drive, even when it's snowing.
How are the heaters?
There is no heaters.
No heat?
No heat. No, not at all.
So what do you do?
Well, I wear a flying jacket and a leather hat.
A throwback to more fashionable but less safety-conscious days of auto design, many Alvises came equipped with suicide doors.
I tend to do this way. I turn around the other way and do it. And going sideways like that.
Here are some more sights and sounds of the exquisite Alvis automobiles.
I know what you mean.
It's terrific. It's a wonderful spread, most enjoyable day. Everything's going extremely well. Thank you, America.
So we arrived last night. We arrived on a bus, so we had
no idea where we were in the middle of Baltimore, so it was real difficult to try and find the roads out of it. And when you're driving on your own here, you can't look down at the map, of course. Yeah, so you can't be anticipating a junction ahead, which lane you're going to be in, so it was a lot of fun. But fortunately I had some friends with me and we tried to stay together, and I sometimes had to keep them in sight, and I'm real close to jumping lights sometimes to stay up with them.
Oh, a bit stressful at times because the man always knows the best, or so they think. But I think women are probably better at navigating than men because they're more patient and read things more into it than a man does. But I think it's good for a woman to be there anyway because she organises not just the navigating but the everyday things that a man needs.
Are you having a little bit of problem here?
Well, we have a glass to get rid of.
Drink it.
A little row here?
A little row?
No, we never row.
Discussion.
We don't row when you get to our age. I'm married almost 40 years.
Is that right? Are they just discussions?
Just discussion.
Take a look at it as long as I can open the... It's a delightful car to drive. It's a push rod, but overhead valve. Twin SU carbs that I hope you're getting in all their splendor. They're polished splendor. And you'll notice that the lube chart is on the radiator in brass, so you don't have to reach for a handbook.
So what do you put in?
I haven't got the foggiest. I never read the chart.
So you got your whole tool set up back here, huh?
Yeah.
Have you had any breakdowns or any trouble?
No, some friends we were helping out actually. They got some, they wanted some gear.
Well, that's nice of you.
Oh, that's what we're here for.
So how cold would it need to be for you to put the top up?
It's more like how wet would it be, not cold. Bye, folks. See you later.
Thanks for watching this episode of Sports Car Magazine.